Hello, my name is Brand Hunt. My channel is simply called Discerning What is True. I'm going to be reading a book that I've been reading here off and on here that has to do with Kabbalah. There are two books I'm actually reading. One is Psychology and Kabbalah, and then I've been also, me and Phil Langdon talked on Thursday. If you haven't seen the video, simply go to my YouTube channel, simply Discerning What is True. And we were talking for a little over an hour, that is, dealing with the issue of Kabbalah, which is the book here, A Tradition of Hidden Knowledge. This book is available, pretty reasonable, from Thames and Hudson, which is an English publisher. They tend to do what I call oversized books, or popular writers, so to speak. Maybe not so popular writer like this particular guy here, who is I think he was a rabbi. I better not say that. He was a Jewish guy, that is. His name is simply called Zev ben Shimon Halevi. I think that's how you pronounce it. And the book is called Psychology and Kabbalah. Again, like I said, me and Phil did talk about this particular book again on October 30th. Go to my, again, like I said, YouTube channel, Discerning What is True, and watch that video. You'll learn quite a few things there. So anyway, we'll get into the book here, that is Psychology and Kabbalah, which is written by the same author. So thank you for being here, and let's get into the book here. This will be chapter 6, simply called Four Levels. Doesn't surprise me that the four elements out there, that is air, water, fire, and earth. All of us are a combination of some of these particular four elements. I mean, not, when I would say that simply is to do what I call a spiritual type of thing, or when we were born in a certain month, which could be a fire month, could be a water month, could be a earth or air sign, so to speak. So there's 3 months out there for fire, 3 for water, 3 for air, 3 for what is it? Water, air, fire, and I forgot the other one right quick here. Yeah, air, water, fire, water. Right. Okay, I'm sorry. So it's 4 levels here. So let's stop. Let's get to the book here. There's quite a few chapters here. So, we're just going to go through what I call a very short chapter here tonight, the first day of November 2025. Approaching the composition of a human being from the Aristotelian or empirical view, we begin by setting out the structure and dynamics of the body. The body is made up of 4 elements, that is, solids, liquids, gases, and radiance. It also has 4 levels of operation, that is, it's mechanical, chemical, electronics, and consciousness. Here we see the 4 worlds echo in physicality. In terms of the tree, there is the interaction of the outer pillars in structure and dynamics, with the central column acting as the axis of consciousness within the organism. Thus, there is a mineral level of awareness in all the essentially physical operations, a vegetable awareness in the living processes, a social and environmental perception of the animal level of the body, and a human dimension in that a person can be conscious of things beyond, that is, that which the senses detect. This includes the capacity to be aware of being aware, which is a capability, we are told, that only humanity possesses. If we take a more detailed look at the tree of the body, we will observe that it follows the model of the highest tree of Sephirah, but at the physical level of reality. Thus the body, that is Makub, contains the 4 elements and the sense organs which look outward to perceive solids and liquids through touch and taste, gases through smell, and hearing and radiance through all, especially sight. Here we also observe the principle of interpretation of levels as taste, for example, is a blend of solid and liquid, and hearing a combination of gaseous vibration and radiation. The triad surrounding Yesod, that is Y-E-S-O-D, or the foundation of the autonomic nervous system that governs routine procedures, is made up of muscle on the active side of the physical tree and nerves on the passive or receptive side, with the here. Something's happening here. Something wrong. With the to change something out here. Sorry about that, folks. Horizontal triad of organs above processing what comes in through Malkut. Beyond the path stretched between Had and Nezah, that's N-E-Z-A-H, or the voluntary and involuntary principles, example by selective listening and heart rhythm, lies the triad of tissue. This is where the ingested elements pass out of the mechanical and into the chemical levels, represented by those processes concerning with building structure or releasing energy. This resolving and dissolving is monitored by the Jervaga and Tiferet and Hesed triad of metabolism, which is governed by the by the central nervous system of the pivot of the body tree. So it shows simply here a figure 11. If you have this book, you can actually go to, if you don't have it, you can actually go to a website called www.welib.org and download this book on your computer, and you can read it yourself. It is a good thing to do. It doesn't cost you anything. You can just listen, watch it, not watch it, but read it, that is. Figure 2, psyche and the body. As can be seen, the basic pattern is the same for both organisms. The only difference is the nature of physical and psychological substance and process. This means that each vehicle of consciousness can influence the other through somatic resonance. Thus, for example, an unbalanced metabolism can affect the soul, making it depressed or elated. Likewise, a broken heart or disappointment can be echoed in heartache or upset stomach. To parallel the self and ego with the central and autonomic nervous system is a useful tool in the diagnosis of a physical or a psychological problem. So the upper zone of the body, that is, tree, is composed of the side triads that control the positive and negative electrical processes that, for example, accelerate or decelerate various functions, such as the muscular action and brain waves. The central great triad of Banal, Tiferet, and Hawkman contains the electromagnetic field of the body, which includes those finer frequencies that no machine can detect, but which can be perceived by individuals with a sensitivity to the aura of the body. This phenomenon is not as mysterious as it seems, as most people respond to someone with a disturbed aura field by sensing it is a peculiar atmosphere about a person. In a scheme, Banal and Hawkman represent the body's organizational form and the life principle that activates it. The keter of the body, that is the tree, in our scheme corresponds simultaneously to the Tiferet of the psyche and the Malkut of the spirit. Here we see how the three lower worlds can be perceived by a human being. By this it meant that a person can cognize not only through the senses, but also be aware of the psychological and spiritual dimensions of reality. As the body reacts to the physical world, so the psychological organism experiences the world of formation and the spiritual vehicle, the world of creation. However, although their interaction enables the person to be aware of all three realities, that is, most people are only conscious of the physical dimension, you see. The higher levels are usually confined, I should say, to the unconscious until a shock like death or developmental crisis occurs to raise the question of what life might be about. More of this later. To be precise, Most people live in the area between the lower physical functions and the higher psychological faculties. In tree terms, they are oblivious of the autonomic processes of the body below the central nervous system, temporal, and unconscious events beyond the temporal of the psyche. This leaves the upper face of the body and lower face of the psyche, which operate at the same level, but in different realities. At the centers of this interaction of perception of different worlds is the place of Da'at, which is meaning knowledge, or knowledge of the body, and Yesod as being or foundation of the psyche. Here, the exchange of physical and psychological data is rendered into an intelligible image by the ego, which can become aware of a pain in the body or a mood in the psyche. That's correct. The ego, as most people, is the chief mode of consciousness. It perceives through the senses and can recognize and differential thoughts from feelings. It can imitate action, recall past events, deal with routine matters like driving cars, and select to what the body and psyche can relate. This is possible because of many factors that we shall discuss. At this point, however, we shall keep to the outline, the general framework in tree terms, so as to build up a key vocabulary. The triads around the ego of the psychological tree we compose of thinking on the passive side and action on the active, with feeling in the triad that corresponds to the organs on the lower physical tree. This is not without reason, as there is an, quote, as above, so below, quote, end quote, relationship between the triads of one tree and another. Thus, feelings are associated with such organs as the stomach and heart, while thinking is related to the system of nerves and action with the triad of muscle. These correspondents are relevant to the interaction of body and psyche, either through feeling precipitating thought and then action, or some other combination. Here's the mechanism of psychosomatic disorders, or as psyche and body resonant in the two trees. Above the three threshold lines stretched between the Hod, H-O-D, and Nezah of the psyche, which represents the voluntary and involuntary processes of the mind, lies the triad of awakening, where the data collected by Hod, H-O-D, and the power of Nezah, N-E-Z-A-H, come into conflict with the self of the psychological temporal. Here, consciousness is elevated and one becomes aware of being aware. Everything is clear and lucidity is present to perceive the lower part of the psyche, especially the ego, quite objectively. Such an event can occur during a dramatic moment or while particularly at peace. It has the quality of seeing the body and the physical world from another place, and indeed that is precisely what is happening as one center of conscious gravity is shifted out of the sensual organ and ego into the realm of Nirjara, when seen from the temporal of the self. From here, the unconscious can come into consciousness, where suddenly memories, drives, and restraint, normally unrecognized, come into view as the side triads of emotional and conceptual complexes may reveal their contents. There it will be seen in the diagram are divided into active and passive. That is, the emotional and intellectual experiences that form the structure and dynamic aspects of psyche. Example of a passive complex may be seen in certain disciplines. One learned as a child, such as not expressing one's emotions or holding back or holding firm to certain values. An active example may take the form of a zest for music or a political idea. The soul triad of the psyche defines the zone of free will. While all the other triads performs important tasks, they are nevertheless under definite laws. The body must concur with these or die, and the main part of the psyche is unconscious and therefore not accessible to choice. Only when a person is centered in the self, if only for a moment, can he or she alter the pattern of their life. This is because the soul triad, it will be noted, is not part of the lower world of nature as the upper realm of the spirit. It is quite independent, either, although it has the Tifrel connection with the Keter of the body and the Maku of the spirit. The self is the place where the three lower worlds meet in the psyche. The Banal Hakama Tifrel triad of the psyche is a blend of the upper part of Yetzirah and lower part of Beriah. Here, the individual relates to the spiritual dimension. Thus, deep within the unconscious is a connection to the transpersonal world of creation. This cosmic aspect reveals the relationship of the individual to the universe. Here, the divine spark that is impelled through space and time is held by the spirit that emanates the psyche, which lives within a physical body. Thus, when and where we are born is not accidental. I'll say that again. Thus, when and where we are born is not accidental. Okay, so when someone's born at a certain time, that's already been planned. Okay. Nor is the form of our fate, which is, under psychological laws, as exacting as those which govern the body to give it distinct characteristics and limits. This is so because, according to the Kabbalistic tradition, divinity watches over each of us. Okay? Through the divine connection at the Keter of the psyche, where the three upper worlds meet in the Tifrel or Beriah, and the Maku of Azillah. As the Sufis say, quote, God is closer to us than we are to ourselves. Interesting comment, isn't it? God is closer to us than we are to ourselves. This completes the general scheme of the psychological tree. Detailing will come later. Each of us is the image of Adam Katman. Within every human being are, in miniature, all the levels of imagination, creation, formation, and action. We have been called forth from the Absolute for a distinct purpose and have been given 4 vehicles that allow us to operate in all the worlds. Having outlined our frame of reference, let us now examine the subject of reincarnation, which has a profound bearing upon the psychology of an individual. So we'll stop there at this point. The next chapter will be transmigration. We'll stop at this point, okay? Again, discerning what is true, November 1st, 2025.